Welcome to the 53rd in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the town of Brookline became the first community in New England designated an age-friendly city by the World Health Organization of the United Nations. Last year, AARP also designated Brookline as one of its age-friendly cities. This was a result of the commitment by the residents, attention of the select board, responsiveness of town departments, and leadership provided by Brookline Can, an all-volunteer network. Brookline Can addresses issues that benefit residents of all ages. Of course, all viewers are welcome to join Brookline Can network of people, ideas, and actions at the brooklinecan.org website. Our guest today is extremely timely, and that is Neil Wishinsky, the town moderator. Neil Wishinsky was elected in 2024 as the Brookline town moderator. The moderator presides over the town meeting, maintaining order and setting the pace and the tone. Neil has been involved in the Brookline government for almost 25 years, 6 years on the select board and 4 as chair, many years on the town advisory finance committee. And he's been a member of zoning board of appeals and a longtime town meeting member. Professionally, he held various positions at the U.S. Department of Labor, regulating employee benefit plan fiduciaries. He's a graduate of Wharton School and the University of Pennsylvania, and has an MBA from BU. Neil and his wife Susan have lived in Brookline since 1981. Welcome, Neil, and thank you for your extensive service to the town of Brookline.
Well, thank you, Matt, and thanks for having me. I'm glad to appear, and this is actually, I think, my second or third time on your program.
Oh yeah, you've been on this program.
Yeah, I did it while I was a select board member. So
and chair.
And chair.
And chair one time, so it's twice. Yes. Let's first explore, instead of you, what the town meeting does. What is the governance of Brookline? In short, but it really, I find people I talk to have no idea.
Right. So Brookline is actually the largest town in the Commonwealth. So what does that mean? That means we have a legislature, that's a town meeting, and we have a representative town meeting. And what that means is the town is divided into 17 precincts, and each precinct elects 15 town meeting members. So that's 255 town meeting members, plus the members of the select board, and then technically myself as moderator and the town clerk are town meeting members, for a total of 263 town meeting members. And that's the legislature of the town, and the legislature passes bylaws, changes zoning, makes requests to the state legislature, passes resolutions. But the most important thing that town meeting does is it passes the town budget. And in all forms of government in the United States, it's the legislature that has the power of the purse. And in Brookline, that's town meeting. And there's most dollars spent by the town must be appropriated by town meeting. There are some exceptions. There are some grants, some federal money, but the vast majority is probably 95% of the money being spent by the town comes through town meeting and its citizen legislature. And town meeting meets twice a year. Generally, it can meet more often, but we have a tradition of doing an annual town meeting. This is actually a state law that says we have to have an annual town meeting in the spring, and then we also have a special town meeting in November, and then occasionally we have other, quote, special town meetings. And that differs from, say, a city, which might have a city council, which might have perhaps anywhere from 9 to, well, Newton has 20, I think 3 or 4 council members that represents the residents of the town. And then city council will meet a lot more often, typically once a week, maybe once every other week, but throughout the year. Whereas in Brookline, we meet twice a year. And a town also differs in its executive branch. A city might have a mayor or a city manager. We have a select board made up of 5 individuals, and the select board must vote and get a majority of its 5 individuals for any action or policy that they come up with, which is different, of course, from a mayor form of government. So, and then we have lots of boards and commissions, and navigating through the Brookline political structure is a fairly complex undertaking because there's just so many people involved. So that's the downside of it. The good side is there's a lot of people involved. And there's a very high degree of citizen engagement. Folks who want to get involved, the barriers to entry in a town are a lot lower than the barriers of entry in a city. So it's a lot easier to get elected to town meeting than it is to get elected to city council. So that's kind of the big overview.
And of course, we won't go into it, but there is question of should the governance change in Brookline? It would take years.
But we won't go there, and
We won't go
that
there.
might be a big topic coming up in the next year.
Right.
But let's not go there.
No,
Yeah.
but make people aware. But it's so the coming meeting, which is really important now that you've described it, if we ignore the rest of the year, we should not ignore the town meeting coming up, because that's the annual meeting. That's where things that are going to the legislature are voted on. That's where the town budget is voted on. So what are the dates? What's the schedule? Where are we?
So we're starting up on the day after Memorial Day, May 27th. And I'm expecting this one is going to go 4-ish nights. People ask me, how long do I think town meeting will last? And that's kind of what I'm telling them. We have 6 nights reserved at the auditorium. So we can go as long as 6 nights, and then if we have to go longer, we will. But I don't think we'll have to. One difference this time around is this is going to be a completely in-person town meeting, which is a little different than what's been happening last 5 years, I guess, coming out of COVID. During the COVID years, town meeting was completely remote. And then we got authorization to do a hybrid town meeting, and that's what we've been doing. But the authorization to do hybrid town meetings expired on March 31st. So we issued our warrant. The warrant is setting the agenda for town meeting at the beginning of March. Right at the deadline, this is typical of the state legislature, right at the deadline, they extended the authorization to do hybrid town meetings. But then you get into the weeds, and the weeds said basically, well, if you've already issued the warrant, you can't take advantage of this. So for this time around, we're going to do it the old-fashioned way, completely in person, but there may be some people attending remotely as a reasonable accommodation of a disability. So there will be some remote folks, but I'm expecting 95% of the folks to be in the room, which is different than in recent years where we've had I think last year we had about 75% of the folks in the room, about 25 remote. But the interesting thing is that that was the first night, and then as town meeting drags on to other nights, the number of folks participating remotely increases, and I think by the last night of the last town meeting, we were at maybe 55, 45. Um, so the room got a little emptier, but the number of people attending was about the same.
Not this
So
year. This year
yeah,
they
so
will be
yeah,
there.
this year everyone's going to be in the room, or the vast majority
Right, right.
will be in the room.
That's exciting, actually. It's different. They'll find out
Yeah,
who.
I'm convinced that people interact differently remotely than they do when they have to sit next to their neighbor. Um, and as opposed to seeing their neighbor as a box on a screen. And I don't have any data. This is just intuitively, it just, observationally, people tend to be more civil when there are live bodies next to you. Um, and that's kind of been borne out, I think, from what we've seen in town meeting. The last few town meetings have been quite civil, quite calm, and even though we've had some very contentious issues before us, the structure of town meeting really encourages civil debate, and that's one of the real strengths of our town meeting.
Yeah, I think that the town moderator can take some credit for that. But
Well, yeah, and it's funny, you start looking at, okay, what is the job of the town moderator, and you can say, you can approach it technically. Well, the job of the town moderator, well, you recognize speakers, you time them, you try to structure a debate, but more than that. Um, I believe the town moderator really needs to set a tone. And every town moderator does it a little differently. My longtime predecessor, Sandy Gatsby, had his own way. He was very effective. Um, and he ruled town meeting with an iron fist. And town meeting functioned, and it functioned very efficiently, and he got the job done. Um, I, I, I look at that, and that's not my personality. Um, I'm I like to think I do it a lot like Sandy, but with a smile, or perhaps with more of a smile than
yeah,
Sandy. Sandy had a very dry sense of humor that many people got, but many people didn't. I kind of got it and enjoyed it, but others perhaps didn't. So,
yeah, he was
so
tough.
excuse me.
But no, you're that sounds pretty good. It sounds right to me from when I saw him a number of years. Well, I've been here quite a while, but and he did a great job.
Oh yeah,
And we had
yeah.
him on the show, by the way. He actually
Ah,
came. Yeah, he was one of the earliest people on the show because there was a big town meeting coming, and it's so important for people to understand how this works. Your description's great. I mean, that's where it happens. You can spend the rest of the year reading about things happening in town, but where things actually happen that structure the next year and years to go forward as far as budgets, everything else, that's the town meeting.
and Sandy has been a very big help to me. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. For example, when an amendment, so when articles are published, that's the agenda. If someone wants to propose a change, an amendment, or propose something different, it has to be within the scope of the article. So the article sets the scope, and then you can change it within certain parameters. And sometimes in some of these very technical articles, like for example in zoning, which is very technical, you have to make the moderator has to make a determination of whether or not a proposal is within scope of the warrant. So Sandy has been a very big help to me. I'm not a lawyer, he is, in kind of deciphering what's being done and really helping me understand um, the how to make scope determinations. Um, and some of those can be quite controversial. And the public doesn't see that because it happens a lot behind the scenes. But town meeting members who are active and are proposing amendments are very aware of that process. And and that takes up a lot of my time in the lead up to town meeting, just talking to town meeting members who are making proposals and figuring out whether or not their proposal will be in fact presented to town meeting as within scope. And that's actually one of the real, I'll call it powers of the moderator. And the moderator has a lot of influence on what motions come before town meeting. Moderator has no influence on what's put on the warrant, but once it's on the warrant, kind of the moderator takes over. That was even something for as long as I had been involved in town government, I didn't quite get that part of the moderator's job until it was thrust upon me. So that's been interesting.
Yeah, that also I understand, and I honestly do not know exactly how this works. Are there committees that you appoint and create
Yes,
that the study of the city, the town
right.
government, for instance?
So there are two standing committees that the moderator appoints. The first is the advisory committee, which is the town's finance committee. And the advisory committee is a requirement of state law. And state law says any town that receives more than $1 million, and our budget is 400 million. So yeah, we have more than 1 million, has to have a standing finance committee making recommendations. And actually the advisory committee in our situation presents the town budget to town meeting. It's the advisory committee's budget. So what you'll see is there will be a budget speech right before the budget deliberation by the advisory committee chair. That's kind of I like to think of it as a financial state of the town address. And then the select board will then speak, chair of the select board. And I always approached it when I was the chair as this is my view of the state of the town, kind of a little at perhaps 30,000 feet, sometimes bringing it down to 10,000. And then we get into the budget debate. But the advisory committee does more than just look at the town's finances. It studies and makes recommendations on every warrant article that comes before town meeting, and proposes and makes recommendations, as I said, and also proposes amendments. And in some instances really sets the conversation. Um, and so the advisory committee is very important. And I approach it that there needs to be a diversity of opinion. There must be a geographic uh, uh, dispersion. All parts of the town need to be represented. All constituencies, as much as I can, need to be represented on the advisory committee. And that's a committee that's very hard to recruit for because
Sure.
it's a very big time commitment. So
But
I have a
they get
lot
paid.
of,
They get paid well.
oh yeah, they get paid zero. So, but it's a very hardworking committee. They'll produce a written report for every warrant article. The reports are of universal, in my opinion, high quality. And it's a real, um, it's something other towns don't have. Other towns don't have an advisory committee that produces the kinds of reports that our advisory committee does. So it's a real essential for this town meeting, given that we are such a large and complicated town
Yeah.
to have a functioning advisory committee. So that's one committee I appoint. The other standing committee that I appoint is a committee on town organization and structure, which is a less visible committee that meets occasionally and discusses and sometimes makes recommendations to town meeting on big organizational and structural issues. And that's a less well-known committee. And then there are occasional moderators committee that are formed at the behest of a town meeting. That's kind of the extent of the kinds of appointments that I do.
So what is the committee that was looking at the structure of,
Right, that was a moderators committee on forms of government that's become quite controversial. There's a group of folks who are very unhappy with the report that the committee turned out, and that might be discussed. There's a warrant article on that, and the committee just voted to submit its report and dissolve. And the report is available on the town website, and your viewers can form their own opinion
right?
on the report. The committee, a spoiler alert, the committee was split and didn't make a recommendation, but issued three final reports, one of which made a case for us to convert to a city. Another made a case which was for the status quo, and another was kind of a little out of the box thinking on creating something called citizen assemblies, which it's a complicated concept, but it might be worth a discussion with the author of that report, which was Larry Lessig. So that for those who are tuning into town meeting, you might hear more about that.
Great. Now, what about the moderator? What about the administrator, town administrator? Any role at all in town meeting?
Well, the town administrator offers a budget, a financial framework, which the advisory committee is the starting point for the advisory committee when they form their budget. And actually, the town administrator's role in town meeting is quite limited. Basically answering questions. The town administrator runs the day-to-day operations of the town, and the town administrator will be there and will answer questions and be whispering in the ear of the select board chair, advising him perhaps on some issues what to say. But the town administrator, and actually town employees' roles are limited to answering questions and responding to questions, which is so it's the main players are the elected officials, town meeting members, advisory committee, moderator, and the select board.
How do you pick out the speakers on any issue? I mean,
Folks sign up in advance. Some folks sign up in advance, and that allows me to structure a debate. And then we have microphones set up through the hall. And once when we get to those microphones, it's first come, first serve. So so there are 4 mics, and then of course there might be some folks remote, and I try to keep track of who, of the order. Sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't. But the important thing is having folks sign up in advance permits me to structure debates such that pros and cons can alternate. The first speaker will be generally either the petitioner or someone from the Select Board Advisory Committee, kind of to set the stage and explain what's going on, and then we get into the back and forth, and then there might be questions. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
The in-person thing really, and of course, when we say in person, it's going to be on big, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
On the local stations.
It'll be on big, and it'll be on the cable,
Yeah, and this is
cable, and on the YouTube.
on cable. Well,
It'll
cable,
be, yeah,
local cable, local cable.
local cable. Yeah.
Yeah, not on CNN. No.
No. Not on CNN.
Or Fox or MSNBC, to be fair to everybody.
Right.
So, okay. I think there's so many other things I could get into, but we won't have any time if I do that. So I'm a little concerned about that. But the idea of it being in person to me is a very, very different thing. People should be aware of it. It's worth
Yes.
seeing. I think if they're ever going to make decisions on changing the structure, seeing this town meeting would be a really good thing for that input to all the thinking, because we're back to reality, to the way we used to operate, and maybe better, and we're ready for all of these things. We're dealing with enough problems, budget related, and there's always an issue like, should we have nuclear war or not? You know, a major Brookline issue, and that comes up. So I think we're going to be. I think this meeting is really important, and I hope people watch this, because it's going to be out well before the annual meeting itself, and it'll be in the newsletters for the various things. For our audience, it's going to be in Senior Center newsletter, and it's going to be in the Brookline Can newsletter. And keep track. Everybody should keep track of what's. A town administrator certainly keeps people informed.
Yes.
And Brookline.news will. You're going to be in the news. Definitely in the news this year. Because
And you could always go to the town meeting website within the town website, and you can see the warrant articles. You can see what the advisory committee has written, if you really want to get into the weeds and get a sense of what's going on.
Great. We're about reaching our end. So I think we can, unless you have something, I usually give you an opportunity to say something if you'd like to at the end. So
the reaction I've got to the way town meeting has been run has been quite positive. So I've enjoyed it, and I hope folks have enjoyed having me as moderator.
yeah, I've heard that too, by the way. I just want to thank you, first of all, for coming. And second of all, I'd like to remind everybody that over the next few weeks, it'll probably show up before the town meeting. It'll show up on big this number of times over the next few weeks. It's available on the Brookline Can website, and on Brookline Can Facebook and Twitter. I never know what to call it. X or Twitter accounts. Facebook.
I refuse to call it X.
Yeah. First of all, you'll think
we won't go there.
You're calling a son or something. So.
Right.
But no, so do I. But everybody take care and be safe.